Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions, and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined today with my co-host Tate in the Hour, and today we're bringing you another one of our reviews. We're sort of getting back into the original swing of things now with a movie review and film club as well. We're sort of leading up to Oscar season now, so we're getting in all the big hitters this year. This is sort of one of them, I think.
Oh, you think? I don't. There you go, there's our opinions on this film already. If
Bye,
you liked
everyone.
the video, like Rick was.
But no, so today's review is obviously going to be Ron Howard's latest movie, which is In the Heart of the Sea, which stars Chris Hemsworth, Cillian Murphy, and Benjamin Walker. Also, if you're sort of like an avid listener of our podcast, if you are, hello, thank you for subscribing to our channel. But you will probably notice that the audio sounds a little different. That is because me and Tate have brand new microphones. And
they are beautiful.
They are they're amazing.
You can now hear my silky voice in high definition.
Yeah. So, I'm leaving that in. I'm not even cutting that out. We've got the Blue Snowball mics, and our channel is not sponsored by Blue Snowball mics. I just wanted to say what our tech is. It is weird that we both have to lean in really close to the mic. If you hear any sort of
I don't, because I've got mine set up right. You don't.
Well,
you do. But
you clearly got a better one than I did. But if you hear any sort of like pops when we talk, that's because the mouth guard didn't arrive with the tech, so we're waiting on that. But when we got that, oh my god, this recording quality is just going to be just
crystal clear.
It's going to be majestic as fuck, which is going to be the quote of this entire channel. But anyway, let's get on to In the Heart of the Sea. Now, we really don't have a plan for this, so we're just sort of like going to go at this film. I'm guessing that we should probably still stick to the whole spoiler-free and then move into spoilers later. So we'll let you know when we get to spoilers.
We were headed for the edge of the earth. Left home behind with a sliver of hope. Searching for the truth.
You're married to Whaleman.
Whaleman who loves you.
Promise me. Just come back.
Promise.
What is it? Hold on!
So usually we start off with like our thoughts before going in, so I guess we can go on to that. Man, I was hyped for this movie. Like, when this trailer came out, like, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, this was honestly probably like my top 3, maybe top 5 most anticipated movies of this whole entire year. And of course, it was originally going to come out March earlier this year, and it was since pushed back to December. I think it was released for us on Boxing Day. So right there, where it was sort of making that Oscar nomination push, I thought they really have confidence in this movie. This is just going to, no pun intended, blow everything else out of the water. So what were sort of your thoughts before going in, and then we'll sort of break down our actual thoughts and opinions on the movie.
I'm not going to lie, Chris, but did we not have a discussion about my thoughts before going into this movie when the trailer came out? You're like, oh, look at this amazing trailer for In the Heart of the Sea. I was like, oh, I haven't heard of that film yet, because usually I get my film information either through Reddit or through Empire Magazine. So he was like, oh, have a look at this trailer. And did I not say to you immediately, this is going to bomb?
Yes,
this film is not going to be good. The acting is not going to be as good as you think it will be. Yeah, sure, it stars Thor in it. Yeah, sure, it stars the Scarecrow in it. Yeah, sure, it stars Spider-Man in it.
Yes.
However, this will not be as good as you think it will be. And well, are you slightly disappointed with this film? At least?
Yeah, so let's sort of get into the summary of our thoughts now. I was disappointed with this movie. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's perfectly serviceable for the story it's telling and everything like that. But it is a deeply flawed movie, and I can't sugarcoat that. I can't defend this one as much as I'd like to. It does have a lot of problems. It has technical problems, which I want to get onto later.
Yeah.
And already the box office, so it came out Boxing Day. It's currently made 76.1 million of a budget of 100. I still think that's pretty good. Like, I think it has the chance to make its budget back, definitely, but I think they were probably hoping for a little bit more than that opening weekend.
Well, the fact that we're talking about the fact that it may have a chance to get its budget back, the fact that it hasn't got its budget back already shows that it isn't exactly the most popular film. And the critics aren't really helping by giving it 42% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, see, I think that is too low for it, in all honesty. Like, I don't think it's awful, but I mean, it's shocking as well for Ron Howard. I mean, Ron Howard's made quite some decent films in the past. I mean, you look at recent years, he's made Rush, going further back, A Beautiful Mind. Okay, Apollo 13. That is without a doubt one of my favourite films. Apollo 13 is a fantastic made movie. He's just very inconsistent. Like, for every Apollo 13, he'll make Angels and Demons. Or for every Rush, which, granted...
Is it bad that I would happily defend Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code?
I love the Da Vinci Code. I will defend that movie to the end. I really disliked Angels and Demons.
I'm okay with both of them. So.
You enjoyed them more than this one, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So, In the Heart of the Sea, it's the story. It's the incredible... I'm going to quote this from the poster. Based on the incredible true story that inspired Moby Dick. And I don't really think... Is this giving anything away in sort of like how the story's framed, how the film's framed, and from the perspective?
Well, if you're aware of the story of Moby Dick, then yes, this will be pretty obvious how it goes. General plot is giant whale.
Yes. And I do actually think that the trailers are incredibly misleading on that fact, because the whale really only appears... I want to say in like 3 scenes throughout the film. It sort of shows up when it needs to. It does serve as a sort of... theme throughout the film for the character played by Chris Hemsworth, Owen Chase. And I know that was probably one of your biggest faults, wasn't it? Did you want to see the whale more in it? I thought the amount of times that the whale was in it perfectly served the story. It was there for the thematic, and I haven't read the book Moby Dick, but I'm sure that many people in English literature classes have read this book and like deconstruct it and exactly what the whale symbolizes and everything like that. To be honest, I thought it was a complete work of, absolute fiction. Now, we know that the actual book did change some things, and that's sort of like referenced in the film, but I never knew that it was actually based on something like this, although there are moments in this film which are massively like sort of like fantasized and over the top and would never have happened in a situation like that.
There are some parts of this film which are truly harrowing and exciting.
Yeah.
However, the whale services none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, personally, from my own opinion, he probably is meant to be the main character in this film or the main focus of the film. However, it didn't serve me well. From the trailers, I saw 3 shots of the whale, and I immediately thought, that's probably all we're going to see. We're going to see it in 2 different locations. We'll see it once at night, once in the daylight, and that's it. I personally thought that at the start of the film, it was going to be this isn't giving the plot away, this is me saying what I thought the plot was going to be. I thought it was going to be they're going out to hunt for the whale immediately. Like, someone spotted it, it's destroyed another ship, so they're going out after it, and instead they meet the whale at night, whale destroys ship, they then go back in smaller boats, try and kill the whale again, and that's how I thought the film was going to go, but it went in a completely different direction. It was less action-packed than I thought it was going to be, it was less emotional than I thought it was going to be. It was just a bit of a dull note until about the final 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is probably chief among them. My biggest fault with this movie is that I wasn't emotionally invested in anyone. And I don't know why, because we do spend like the whole first act. I mean, off air, I compared this to Peter Jackson's King Kong movie, which, if anyone's seen that movie, you know how long they spend on that boat at the start and how just like as an audience member, you know that King Kong's in it. You're there just like just show us King Kong.
Yeah.
Just get to the cut to the chase. And that was sort of the same with this movie, is that we've seen the trailers, we know that the whale plays a big part, so you're just sort of like treading water until that moment happens in the film, which is about just over like halfway mark, isn't it? Or about the halfway mark of the film.
I think the whale comes in at about the hour mark.
Yeah.
And that's a long time.
And I think this movie's on for about, what's it, like 2 hours?
It is exactly
20?
2 hours long.
Yeah.
But
it feels
like,
longer. It does honestly
really
feel
does.
really longer than that.
It really is a drag, and I can only clearly remember, like, I saw this 2 days ago. I
Yeah.
can clearly remember the last 20 minutes, because that's the only part of the film that I enjoyed. Actually, probably the final 5 minutes were god-awful. We'll go into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But the 20 minutes before that was actually quite interesting and would have made for a better film. And I will be pitching a film at some point, maybe in the spoiler section, of how the film should have gone. Like, this film, it could have been something. It really could have.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether there was any, like... I know there was obviously filming issues, which meant they had to push it back. But, like, it could have gone so much better. It really could have. And I'm just looking here at the critics, like, what they're saying and stuff like that. And it's all kind of... Well, it was okay. I mean, they could have done more. Or it was a bit boring. I've seen the word boring quite a lot. And that's never good for a film where in your trailers it's quite action-packed. And it looks very serious. I didn't feel like they... Well, obviously, at some points they were in danger. But I didn't really care enough too much about any of the characters that in the end died. So...
And again, you see, I haven't read the book Moby Dick, so I don't know if this is a case in that, but most of the characters were just really unlikable and just hateful, and there's... Obviously, they go through a change throughout the film with, like, the ordeals and things they have to do, but there's only sort of, like, one character you sort of care about, and although... It's difficult to, like, talk about this without sort of going in depth, but although he's framed as the main guy... It's really Chris Hemsworth's, you know, his film. And I just didn't care about Chris Hemsworth's character in this film. In fact, I thought his performance was actually kind of poor in this film. His accent flip-flops back and forth throughout the entire film. He's sort of one note with it all. He's very sort of... He's almost like Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. Like, he's arrogant. He wants more recognition. He's not getting it. So... I mean, he's a leader of people, and we see that in a scene later on where he sort of has this set to with the captain, and the captain sort of got that position because he's been born into it, whereas Chris Hemsworth thinks he's actually got the experience on all the jobs and, like, the whaling he's done in the past. So he's trying to prove himself, but there's no sort of endearing quality towards him. He's just a bit of a dick all the way through.
Yeah.
Even up until the end, like... I still didn't care for him at the end of the film, and that really bothered me, especially in a film like this, 2 hours long. I want to say, like, small cast as well. Like, you sort of stick with a certain, like, level of characters. There's probably, like, about 5 major characters that you sort of focus on the boat. But I think, I don't know if that's a problem with the writing or the performance, or maybe just a combination of both, but I think that that's where the main fault of just having no emotional investment in this film comes from, is the performance.
I just want to go on. I just wanted to say something very quickly on that subject. There was a 2013 film made by the BBC, which was only released in America, called The Whale. I'm just having a look at the cast here, and it was on a £2,000 budget. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Martin Sheen, Jonas Armstrong, John Boyega.
Oh, wow.
And it received reasonably good critical reception.
Yep.
And I'm thinking I want to go see this film now instead of this one.
Yeah, same.
Because, like, this film, it's done very, very high budget, but it doesn't feel... Well, actually, no, I'm wrong. It feels too high budget. It feels like they put too much effort into stuff which really didn't need effort.
Yeah.
This film could have been done on a lower budget and become a better film if it was grittier and gorier.
I definitely think that a lower budget would have helped this movie, and I don't know whether they sort of went... Well, I don't know if they would have gone back and added stuff in, because, and that's why they pushed it back, because I think pretty much everything had been filmed and it was ready to go.
The CGI sea and boats don't help.
Yes, let's talk about that because this is the technical issues that I was referring to earlier on. First off, I do want to say though, I thought the actual cinematography of the film, was very well done.
I'm going to disagree with you there. Actually,
okay.
The cinematography was completely done wrong. Like the lighting to start off with.
Yeah,
I mean, cinematography is all about lighting and what are you seeing. The lighting was wrong in this film.
I think that was more the colour correction, and I know what you're referring to. There's a certain point in the film where I think you described it as lit like a Western, and it's very sort of oversaturated, it's grainy, and I will agree with that. I did think that the sort of like colour balance throughout the movie was all over the place.
The night scenes are too dark, the light scenes are too light. When it was day, when they got on the ship for the first time, like, it was stupid. It really was. Like, I could barely see anything on the screen, and I was sat in a reasonably good seat in the cinema, I'm not gonna lie. And I could barely see any of it, and I was just thinking to myself, if this is going to be the whole movie, I might have to actually ask for a refund on my ticket. That was what I was genuinely thinking at the time. It did calm down in the middle, but when the whale gets reintroduced, the lighting goes completely off again. And you can almost see it in the poster, the original poster with the whale up top. You can see the whale fin, you can see bright lights. Imagine that for about 40, 50 minutes of the film. And that's what you're getting, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, and it's a bit strange as well because Anthony Dodmantle, he's mostly worked with Danny Boyle, to be honest. He's a long sort of like running collaborator with him. He's worked on the cinematography on Rush with Ron Howard before, so that's probably why he used him into this one. But he's worked on Slumdog Millionaire. He's worked on 28 Days Later, 127 Hours, and Dread, which is pretty awesome. And I thought the cinematography was all great in those. I didn't have any problems with lighting or the things like that. I think maybe they were trying to go for sort of like a stylistic effect with it, and it just really didn't come across with it. But let's get more into sort of like the CGI in this film, because this is probably one of the biggest factors that I had a problem with this. I didn't believe that any character in this film was in any kind of peril purely because of the amount of CGI in this film. Now, I've always said that you can have CGI in the film. I'm not against the use of CGI at all. For example, like the whale in this, I'm not expecting you to find like an actual real life rogue pissed off whale and like film it. That's fair enough, you can CGI that. But it seems so self-indulgent in scenes. Like there's a scene towards the beginning of the film where Chris Hemsworth climbs on top of a mast, and it's sort of like his perspective walking along it, and everything just looks fake. You don't believe for 1 second he's up there in that height. The green screen looks terrible, especially when they're in the boats and it looks like they've got fake sea spray sort of like spraying down them. It doesn't look like real water. The background's terrible. The sky's terrible. It literally looks like, as it was, a bunch of people in a rowboat against a green screen, and that just took me completely out of it. I've even compared it to the green screen in Battle of the Five Armies, because that movie, without a doubt, has some of the worst effects I've ever seen in a modern movie. And
I
that's
have to say though, the water in this film looks like the water from the start of Frozen. Yeah. Now everyone went, "Oh look, the water in Frozen is actually amazing." Yes, because it's an animated film. This is not an animated film, and a gimmick like that doesn't pay off, especially if it's a drama. Yeah. And I just thought that it was not good. Yeah. And the more I'm getting into this review, the more I'm starting to dislike this film. This film does have some good points, and I hope we can get onto it in a bit.
Yeah, we will do,
when we move into the spoiler section. However, when you're looking at the film in a whole, it isn't the best film of the year. And, I mean, if we were going to do our disappointed films list, this would probably be up there if I'd hyped it up as much as you had.
Yeah, definitely. And like with the effects, like that's what takes me out of it. When you mentioned about Frozen and stuff, when you have an animated film, obviously everything is animated, so your eyes don't pick out any fakeness because you know you're watching a movie completely made on a computer. With live action, it's always difficult to get that balance, and I always keep referring to The Hobbit as an example. You look at Lord of the Rings, they blended real life props, sets, miniatures and things with CGI. That film has just aged perfectly, whereas you look at The Hobbit and it's already aged.
With a budget of this film, they could have very easily done something like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, yeah.
They could have put them on an actual boat, filmed some stuff on the boat, and maybe filmed some stuff in at least a pool. You can CGI the background, but at least have them in actual rowing boats when they're in a rowing boat scene. Because I didn't believe it at any point. I think that towards the end, of the good part, the rowing boats were actually real, probably in a tank with CGI everywhere. However, this film looks like it was completely filmed in a studio with barely anything other than maybe the beach scene on set.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the effects look like previs. It looks like they haven't been textured or properly lit and composited and everything like that. And I know how much work goes into CGI, so I'm not bad-mouthing it completely, but it just really didn't work for this kind of film. Like, I wasn't expecting that level of effects. And to be honest, I should have been worried about it, because I remember when I think it was the second trailer came out, and I think that was the one I sent you. It goes crazy, like when the anchors are flying everywhere and characters are ducking and things are breaking apart. It just doesn't look right. But anyway, we've harped on the effects stuff. So what sort of area do you want to hit on now? Because I do want to get onto some of the good points of this film.
I want to punch some of the characters in the face.
That's not a good thing about that. But okay, go for it. Who do you want to punch in the face most?
I want to punch Chris Hemsworth in his perfect face. I want to punch him really, really hard.
There's one character I don't want to punch, and that's Cillian Murphy, because
Cillian Murphy
never
plays
turns
it well.
in a bad performance ever.
Chris Hemsworth. Look, we know that you're not the best actor. I mean, you play a character in a Marvel movie, you're not going to have the best acting chops, especially if your character is a Norse god.
And your brother is Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, the preferred Hemsworth in this film, I may have actually preferred the other one, because he could have given something to the character.
Ooh.
This was a poor performance on his part.
Yeah.
It really was. He was whiny. Do you know what? We're going to compare this a lot to the Star Wars prequels. He was Anakin in this film.
Yeah. No, he was. Yeah.
He was a spoilt little brat going after the whale when it really didn't suit the crew. And it wasn't believable. His performance was nowhere near believable. He wasn't, like, traumatized by the whale. He was just like, oh, but I've got to kill the whale. And the rest of the crew are going, no, you dumb idiot. We need to survive. This whale's too big. We go somewhere else. We do business. But he's too focused on the whale. I know that that's probably what the book was like, and that's what the actual event was like. However, his performance didn't portray that. His performance portrayed, I want what I want to do because of the whole captain rivalry, which is the main thing about this film. We've got the main captain and his first mate. The first mate being Chris Hemsworth. He wants to take control of the ship. Therefore, he's going to be a whiny brat about it and do whatever he says, try and command the crew. And it just doesn't feel right. He doesn't actually do anything to gain the authority over the other crew members to actually persuade them to go and do what they did. Or at least his performance didn't, like, portray that. So in the end, he just came off being just like a big kid, but not in a good way.
Yeah, definitely. And another one of my big problems is as well, I can't get too specific because that might be a spoiler, but how this film is framed, like the perspective of it, I really disliked the whole... It's almost like a subplot with Ben Whishaw playing Herman Melville, who was obviously the author of Moby Dick.
The narration in this film is god-awful. Look, if you're going to make a film about something that inspires Moby Dick and stuff like that, you don't go with narration. I don't like the idea of narration this year of film. In the film Joy, it's narrated from the very, very start, and there was the one thing that I didn't really like about it when I watched it. And yet, in this film, it just doesn't pay off. No. I like Ben Whishaw. He is one of my favourite actors from this year. He really has come out as a brilliant actor. And yet, it didn't fit the film. It really didn't. Like, the whole subplot of them, oh, I'm writing a book, can you inspire me? It really didn't pay off. There was one way which I think they could have done it. Instead of the surviving... or one of the surviving characters from the film telling him the story of what actually happened, maybe they could have done it better where they just not have those characters and just tell the story, and then at the end do the whole Oscar thing where they have, this is what happened after the film ended. Because that's okay, it ties up the plot nicely sometimes. but you can't do both. You can't have narration, and I'm just going to say this now. They did have at the end, this is what happened at the end of this film.
Yeah, which was completely unnecessary, and I would agree those whole segments in the film, and it's not that they're played badly. I mean, you've got Ben Whishaw, and you've got what's his name, Brendan Gleeson, who's a fantastic actor,
and you've got Lady Catelyn Stark.
Yes, in fact, you've got 3 cast members of Game of Thrones in this film, which is quite immense. But yeah, I mean, she's great as well. She was good in Game of Thrones. She was good in this. It was just completely unnecessary, and we were sort of our fair sort of like spitballing ideas of like how we would have made this movie, and we both were sort of in agreement that if we were given sort of like the editing shears on this film, that would have been the first thing to go. And I think if this movie had been made as just purely a Moby Dick adaptation, I think it would probably have been a lot stronger. We could maybe have, filled the time of those sort of author stories with more character development, more, just engaging characters so that we're on board with this. And another aspect of the film I really wanted to see more of, and we got a little bit of it. I wanted to see more of it, and I don't think it was played well by Hemsworth. The rivalry between him and the whale. Like that.
Yeah, what was going on there? Yeah,
in the book of Moby Dick, like, as I say, I haven't read it, but I'm familiar with the story. That is like it's like the linchpin of the whole book.
Yeah.
And like the themes between what they symbolize between each other, they're like the yin and yang. They're like Batman and the Joker. It's like, Captain Ahab and the whale. And I wanted to see more of that. And the scenes where he's sort of standing on the boat with the harpoon and he's like going insane, but it's never really developed all that much. It's just sort of like a one and done scene just to get us to the next beat of the plot. And I would have loved to have like almost had like an Apocalypse Now moment where you really get in the mind of this character and just, or like we've already brought up The Hobbit, but like a Thorin Oakenshield moment where we see this slow sort of like descent of the character into complete and utter madness, and you could have used like the visuals and the lighting to show that throughout the film, but as such it wants to be an action movie. Wants to be an action movie, but then the action in it only happens in about 2 scenes, and then you're sort of left with like a void of just average. And that's the best way I could describe this film. It's not an awful film. It's not a great movie. It just is. It's just there. It's perfectly serviceable for what it wanted to do, but with the source material they had to work with the talent they had and the director they had, it's such a letdown because this could have been so much more.
I have to disagree with you there and say it earns its 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. It really does. I think this film could have been good, and the fact that it's pushing for Oscar season really does put it up against some good films. And seeing films of similar caliber and what they've been able to do technologically and what they've achieved, and seeing what this director has done in the past, seeing what these actors have done in the past, this is not a good film to have on any of their resumes. And it's one that I'm pretty sure Ron Howard will try to forget. And if he's asked about films in the future, what was your favourite films to make and what was your favourite, like, can you name one bad film that you've made? He will say, probably, In the Heart of the Sea wasn't the best. And I'm pretty sure many actors will say that. But, like, it's difficult. It really is, because there is one really good moment in this film, which we can't talk about until spoilers. And if they developed that a little bit more, then it would have been an outstanding film. I reckon, from what I'm going to pitch when we get to the spoiler section, it would have been Oscar-worthy. Not only Oscar-worthy, but Oscar-winning worthy.
Yeah.
But they never went with that.
No, and I think we should probably move into spoilers now. We've sort of given our overall thoughts there.
Yeah.
Another thing, really quickly before we move into spoilers, the soundtrack to this film could have been incredible, and I can't even remember a single bit of the music in this film.
I think the sound mixing didn't make much sense. I mean, like, it was slightly actually distorted when they're on the ship. I'm not sure whether you got that as well.
Yeah.
Like, it really was. You could hear, like, an echo of, like, the soundstage when they're on the ship and stuff like that, especially in the storms and those scenes when they're around with the whales and stuff like that. Any loud noise just sounded slightly distorted on, like, it didn't, like, the whale didn't sound like a real whale. It sounded like they mixed some sounds together to make it sound like a whale.
Because they couldn't like get Obi-Wan's a whale crate dragon noise.
It was like,
in A New Hope.
Are you ready for this? If you've seen this film, then you'll recognise this sound.
Chewbacca's in this movie. Great.
Yeah.
But no, let's get into some spoilers now then. So one thing I want to touch on, and maybe this was me not paying attention to characters' names and stuff, or maybe it was intentional.
Oh no, the characters are forgettable.
Yeah. Brendan Gleeson's character, I think, was meant to be framed that we all thought that was Chris Hemsworth when he was older.
Yeah.
Or was that just me picking up on that?
No, that was completely meant to be framed like that, but as soon as they go into the movie, they drop it that it wasn't that. He isn't that.
It was Peter Parker all along. Oh, what did you think to his performance, by the way? Because he's our new Spider-Man in Civil War.
I've seen him in The Impossible before.
Oh, okay.
And that's a film involving water, and he's pretty good in that. That's the only film I've seen him in, so I wouldn't really judge his performance. I'd say that it was an average performance. He wasn't given too much material. However, I reckon if he was given the right material, he seems quite energetic, and he seems like he can act to a reasonable standard, so I guess we're okay with that. I mean, only time will tell on that one. But I'm sure that Chris Hemsworth and Tom Holland will be working again pretty soon. Yeah,
definitely. I thought he was okay in the film. I guess it's the material and the director he has to work with, you know. Like, there's that one scene in the film which I actually thought was really well done, and I wanted to see more of that savagery of the people.
I want to pitch my film now. I really want to pitch my film now.
Okay, I will make this point and then you
sure.
have the floor. They, obviously, everyone knows what is involved with whaling and how barbaric and gory it was in real life. When they have that whale carcass and they're sort of extracting the oil, and it's just horrible to watch. It's really gross to watch. And they say, you've got to go in there and dig the last bit of oil out. And he's sort of left, and everyone's laughing at him, and he's like left in this horrible carcass. This it smells. That was great. And I think if they'd have played that up more throughout the film, which then obviously culminates into the part where they start eating each other, that's not a euphemism, they turn to cannibalism at the end. I think that you would have saw like the theme just echoed all the way through the movie, and that would have sort of took it to its extreme. They have to do it out of survival, but it also shows the savagery of man and sort of like what man is, what lengths they're willing to go to survive. And I think that your sort of point that you want to make is involved with that sort of scene. So the stage is yours, Tate. Take it away. Pitch us your film.
People, are you ready for the Oscar-winning film that this could have been?
Yes.
So, you get rid of the whale.
Ooh.
That's a good start. No. You start the film with the shipwreck. Doesn't matter whether it's caused by the whale. In fact, the opening scene could be the whale wrecking the ship.
Yeah.
All they need to know is it's a whaling boat. You remove the first an hour or so of the film without the whales in it. You don't need that setup. You start them on the island. They're already out of resources. They're already all a little bit tense because there's a bit of a rivalry going on. And then you get into an hour and a half. That's how big the film's going to be. An hour and a half of them surviving on the island and then in the boats. The whole drawing straws scene where they revert to cannibalism becomes really, really, really tense. And I didn't feel like at any point that any of the main characters were in danger in those drawing straws scenes. I thought, do you know what? It's not going to be the captain. Captain's obviously not going to draw. I reckon one of the others are going to sacrifice themselves. And I was right. In the film, they leave 3 people on the island. I want to see what happens to them. Maybe, because it says at the end of the film they go back from, they find the other one dead. Do they revert to cannibalism? We don't know. Like, the different approaches that different boats take. So there's 3 boats and 3 people left on land. And there was 4 in each boat, I think. You got enough characters to work there with, like, maybe... I know that I'm going to use Hateful Eight here. Hateful Eight, the premise of Hateful Eight, I haven't actually seen it yet. Sounds extremely similar. You've got a limited amount of people, all with different stories, all with different lifestyles.
Isolated
and
space.
all on the edge.
Yeah.
All really tense. Everyone's looking at each other. No one wants to die. They all want to make it back to land. And then you don't know who's going to make it. In the end, we know that one of the boats turns to cannibalism and kills 2 people. On the other boat, they only kill 1 person. Well, they don't kill him. He dies. That's 2 different boats that have already got 2 different outcomes. You could change the outcome of the film. Doesn't have to be perfect to the source material. However, if you have that film as a survival thriller film between these 8 crew members across 2 boats, seeing whether they make it back to land, seeing if the different boats think, oh, okay, if we sacrifice everyone on the other boat, we might be able to survive here because they have food and water over there in like their bodies and stuff like that. We need to survive this. And then the two boats kind of come together and maybe kind of negotiate things, and it becomes like segregated society. That would be a brilliant film, especially with Oscar season coming round. You could keep it as In the Heart of the Sea, because it's all about people in the sea going insane. It could have been a brilliant film. It's just that the first hour or so and the ending, which I'll speak about in a minute when we get to it, were just absolutely piss poor terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't usually like saying like, oh, this is how an entire film should have gone, but I think in the case of this one, it is kind of fascinating to think about like how, like, the few changes that could have been made to it. Like, I agree with just open the scene with them already having killed a whale, and it starts off with them chopping it up and extracting the oil. That establishes their trade, sort of the savagery of them. And also, like, a dead whale at the start is really kind of poetic, I would say, for like what happens after that. Then you can open with sort of like the whale attacking, and then sort of have the whole film as that struggle. Like, either keep it to that one location of them just in the boats, and then making it to the island and everything like that, so that you feel like you're there with the characters. Or maybe you could even do some kind of flashback, so you get the past of the characters fleshed out more, perhaps.
Yeah.
And play up that just arch nemesis of the whale with Chris Hemsworth.
And the thing is, the whale does reappear in this film.
Yeah. And those were some of my favourite scenes, in all honesty.
Favourite scene? No. I'd say that it was not needed. I'm sure that, like, oh yeah, the whale's the main focus of the film. But the whale coming back, it's just stupid. It's like saying, oh yeah, the whale's sentient, it had to go and find them and stuff like that. Whale doesn't attack them. They've already attacked the whale. The whale would have killed them instantly if it was that kind of sentient. It was just like following them, you know? That makes no sense at all. None. And the fact that the one of the members of the film in the end goes back for the whale and tries to kill it again but fails shows that like it just makes no sense to me. It really does, and that scene really did play with me a lot. And I think it's from that scene onwards, after the cannibalism, after they see the whale again, that the film really does kind of start to turn bad. Like, it started to redeem itself, and then you get to the ending, which is a very, very cheesy, don't tell the press, I will tell the press. Oh, okay, I'll tell the press then. It's, and not only that, but like the whole, here, have a whale tooth, kid, and he flicks him the coin to put in the jukebox, or whatever happened at the end there. The whole, but sir, I haven't learnt a lesson. He's like, yes, you have, and you can tell someone writing a book possibly about something like this in about 70 years' time, when you look older and look like an older version of me with your wife who's from Game of Thrones. That's basically how the film ended, and it really did make me sit back and go, that is 2 hours of my life I'm not getting back. I'm happy that I watched it, because it means I don't have to watch it again, because I'm pretty sure that I would have watched this at some point anyway. But I'm just happy to know that I was right about the film going into it. The trailers did kind of hint at it being not as good as people would seem it to be. And overall, no, don't watch this film. Ha.
Just before I sort of give my summary and we close out, what certificate was this film? Was it a 12A?
It was a 12A.
I think that this film should have at least been a 15. Probably 15 not an 18. That's probably too much.
You don't see the cannibalism. If you saw the cannibalism, then yes. Yeah. 18, straight off the bat.
It'd be like Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
if it went into that territory.
But
I just think
it would have been a better film.
Yeah. I think it could have been a little more visceral. Like the stuff you see with the whale, as I said, like the carcass when they're carving that up. That was great. But then I think that you lost a bit. Like, there was how the trailer was edited. I actually really enjoyed that. Like, you see them turn into cannibalism, and you see a shot of Chris Hemsworth like I think it's the scene in the film where he picks up that fish out of the rock pool and he just sort of like devours it. Like, you see that, and then it cuts to the extreme close up of them chopping the whale meat up, and you get that sense just from the shots of editing. Like, this is going to get into cannibalism. Yeah, carving meat, and right from that was really unpleasant and just made my skin
That
crawl when
would
I
have
saw
been
that bit of
good.
the trailer.
That
And
would
I
have been
thought,
good.
We're getting this in the movie, and we really don't get that in the movie, which is such a shame.
No.
But anyway, I'm repeating myself now. So final thoughts. If you're interested in it, I would still recommend checking it out. I don't think it's an awful film, despite all of our problems with it. I think it's perfectly serviceable. You just sort of sit, watch it, 2 hours done. But I know I'm sort of like sounding like Jeremy Jahns here, but honestly, it's not memorable. You probably won't remember it. In fact, I'm almost forgetting it now, and I've only seen it, when it came out at the cinema. But it's such a shame. I really wanted this film to be more. I do think it had some good moments, but those moments were too few and far between. It's not a cohesive whole, and I don't like how the story was framed. So, In the Heart of the Sea was another massive disappointment for me this year, unfortunately, and I really wanted this movie to be good. Before we close out, I know obviously this was pushed back to this month to sort of go up for Oscars, and we're going to do a video on Oscar predictions once we've got to see all of the films that are coming out for Oscar season. But I think that they were really sort of confident with this movie. They thought they could do it, but after seeing this movie now, do you see any sort of like category this could be nominated for?
Sadly, it'll be nominated for visual effects just because they stood out, not because they were good.
Yeah.
I would have to say possibly a stretch supporting actor, if not costume, set and design. That's all I can think of. But in each category, I can think of at least 4 films that would outdo it.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to win 0 Oscars and 1 nomination.
Yeah. And it's such a shame because this movie could have been Apocalypse Now in the sea, but unfortunately it's more like Waterworld. And that's such a shame.
That's perfectly summing it up. It really is.
Look where we find ourselves. What offense did we give God to upset himself?
Trust gave way to doubt, hope to superstition. We were cursed. It's just a whale.
So, that will do it for our review on Ron Howard's In the Heart of the Sea. Be sure to rate, like, comment, subscribe. As of this recording, we are one sub. We are one sub away from hitting 100. So we would
If you're
really...
watching and you haven't subscribed, this is your chance to be that one person to tip it over to the... In fact, if you are OCD with numbers, then you'd be doing yourself a favour by subscribing.
Exactly, and we really would quite like to hit that 100 before the new year. Lots more reviews coming your way this month. As I said, we're hitting Oscar season, so we're getting all the big hitters. We're trying to keep on top of them as we get them released. Unfortunately, in the UK, we get them all a little later than the US, but we'll be sure to try and get them all seen. We'll be giving our predictions for the Oscars, and we are discussing an idea of doing some kind of live stream for the actual Oscars, and we're going to sort of like, just discuss it the whole night, see what wins, and that sounds awesome when we get to do that. So be sure to rate, like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us at facebook.com/cinemasavvy. We're on Twitter at cinema_savvy, and we're also at Letterboxd at cinema_savvy as well. So get involved with the channel as we move into Oscar season and we start the new year of movies. Lots of movies coming out this year that I'm really looking forward to, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that'll do it for now. So until next time, thanks for listening.